Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria and others that made good its threat to stage protests against the federal government over the current security situation and other challenges facing the nation. Well, the call for the protest tag #RevolutionNow, which was coordinated by the publisher of online news medium Sahara Reporters, Moyole Sowore, went viral last week, prompting his arrest by the DSS operatives. On Saturday, the police had also warned the group against organizing such protests, saying it amounted to treason of felony, an act of terrorism aimed at regime change in the country. In the meantime, the Department of State Services, DSS, confirmed the arrest and detention of the publisher of the online news magazine, Sahara Reporters, and the presidential candidate of the Action Alliance, Mr. Moyole Sowore, for allegedly threatening national security. Spokesman of the DSS, Mr. Peter Afunaya, stated this at a news conference in Abuja, but declined comments as to whether or not Mr. Sowore is in the detention facility of the DSS in Lagos or Abuja. According to him, the DSS is acting within its constitutional powers to arrest and detain anybody or group who threatens the unity and peaceful coexistence of Nigeria.
The DSS would not just sit by and watch someone or his groups or cohorts would want to rise and threaten the peace, unity, constitutionalism of our beloved country. Whether Sowore is with the DSS or not, the answer is emphatic, is in the affirmative. Yes, he's with us. And why is he with us? He has crossed the lines. He has threatened public safety. Sowore has, as a matter of fact, threatened the peaceful coexistence, social harmony of Nigeria. And we will not stand by and watch that happen.
In the meantime, the federal government is calling on those organizing the protest called Revolution March to come forward and identify themselves. The government says the organizers under the name Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria should go the extra length of making their identity known. The federal government, in a statement by one of its spokespersons to the president, Mr. Garbashe, who says, quote, "The organization championing this action is not fronted by any serious public faces. We call on the sponsors and organizers to have the decency to come forward and make their identity known out of respect to all Nigerians, so that Nigerians can be fully aware in whose name this revolution is being proposed and who the beneficiaries may be." End of quote. The president's media advisor, Mr. Femi Adesina, echoed similar thoughts when he appeared on our political program, Lunchtime Politics.
No government with legitimacy like this one will sit down, fold his hands, and somebody will say, we are planning a revolution, and you allow him start it. I heard Suraj Olariwaju saying that APC said what they were doing in 2015 was a democratic revolution. Democratic revolution will come through the ballot box. Anything that is called revolution not coming through the ballot box is at best anarchy in the works. I know you nip it in the bud so that it doesn't happen at all.
But human rights lawyer Mike Ozekome, on his part, says the rights of Mr. Sowore is being violated. The senior lawyer who appeared on our flagship political program says the action of the DSS is not only unconstitutional, but also immoral.
It is unconstitutional. It's even immoral. And I'm going to state why it is immoral. It violates his constitutional rights to freedom of expression as provided for in Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, his right to freedom of assembly and association as provided for in Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What has Sowore done with the man you just showed on the video? They term it, they use the word revolution now. They term revolution now. I know that, yes, by the definition of the word revolution, it connotes insurrection, overthrow, kind of maybe making an attempt to instigate, to overhaul. But in law, there's what you call the mens rea of an offense. and the actus reus of that offense. The mens rea is the intention. The actus reus is the act itself. Question. The videos that have been going viral in the last 3 days, they are just telling Nigerians, wake up now. It is your time to come onto the streets and demonstrate and protest against bad governance. And that we must do this peacefully. They emphasize that word peacefully.
Elsewhere, members of the coalition of northern groups insist that they will not take part in the nationwide revolution protest, warning the organizers not to draw the country into unnecessary and avoidable tension. Spokesman of the group, Abdulaziz Sulaiman, at a press conference in Kaduna says every civil disagreement can be resolved through honest and open discussions without unnecessary recourse to violent actions.
The CNG.
In the meantime, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has condemned the arrest of Mr. Omoyole Sowore, who called for a revolution. The Nobel laureate stated his stance on the development in a statement which reads, quote, that the deployment of alarmist expressions such as treason, anarchy, public incitement, etc. by security forces have become so predictable and banal that they have become meaningless, noting that Sowore asserted, written or advocated suggests that he is embarking on or urging the public to engage in a forceful overthrow of government, end of quote. Professor Soyinka asked the police to stick to its task of protecting and managing protests and not attempt to place their own meaning and declaration of intent on words like revolution. Well, still on the same issue, human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana is also condemning the arrest of Mr. Sowore. He says it is worrisome that the federal government has decided to extend the ambit of the Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act to cover individuals and organizations that are critical of official policies or perceived marginalization within the Federation. The senior lawyer says in a statement condemning the arrest of Mr. Sowore by the Department of State Services, the statement reads, quote, it is crystal clear that the organizers of the peaceful rallies cannot be said to have planned to engage in acts of terrorism or formed an intention to remove President Muhammadu Buhari from office, end of quote. Mr. Falana says it is high time the federal government stop the security agencies from further exposing Nigeria to ridicule in the Committee of Civilized Nations. The governor of Rivers State, Mr. Nyesom Wike, has warned against the Revolution Now protests in the state. The governor says that Rivers State is not part of the Revolution Now protests and whatever the agenda it seeks to pursue. Mr. Wike says, quote, Rivers State does not subscribe to what the Revolution Now protest represents, and Rivers State is not part of the protest, end of quote. The governor has directed security agencies in the state to arrest anyone involved in the Revolution Now protest and also take all necessary steps to prosecute such persons. National Chairman condemns actions of National Assembly in the crisis rocking the Edo State House of Assembly. Find out details when we return.